Hi everyone, it is June 17th, 2025. This is Talk Back, and as you can see, we're getting close to June 19th, 2025, which will be the anniversary of the June 19th, 1865 enormous event that we're celebrating. And we now have a national holiday for it, and I have two people who are the best people here to be able to talk about it because they are right on the front lines of what's happening. This is the June 19th flag, everyone. Okay, we're going to talk about the founder of the flag, the designer of the flag, how the holiday got started, and we're going to repeat some of the stuff we did a few years ago, but we've got to know this and learn about it. It's very, very important, okay? So let me introduce, to help us with June 19th today, first of all, nickname Boston Ben, because he's been around Boston, but he's in Connecticut. Boston Ben Haith. Hi, how are you today?
Hi, Sheila. Nice to be with you again.
Again, it's wonderful to see you. And Elijah, Ben's son. How are you, Elijah?
Good, Sheila. Thanks for having me.
So, in 2021, President Biden signed into law Juneteenth as a national holiday, right?
Right.
And this was something that you were working toward for many, many years.
Well, I like to give credit to a man who is no longer with us, Dr. Ronald Myers, who contacted me. He wanted to use the Juneteenth flag. He contacted me, called me, and I talked with him. I said, sure, go ahead. Dr. Myers was out there promoting, making Juneteenth a national holiday. So he and his wife Sylvia deserve a lot of credit, along with a woman from Texas named Opal Lee and some other people that were part of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation.
Right. Obviously, when something like that happens, a national holiday, there are lots of people lobbying for it for many years. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long, long time.
That's right, organizing.
To organize, and your part was working on the flag, which we'll talk about. But when that came into our view in the 2020, 2021, most Americans knew nothing about it, had really not heard about it. It's not something that we read about in our history books in
That's right.
elementary school, in high school, maybe even college. But it was a real thing, certainly down in Texas. So let's go way back. You've been around a long time, and you had family that lived in the South, right?
That's right.
And you have a memory. You tell us about when did you hear about June 19th the first time?
Well, Sheila, as you said, I had relatives in the South, and my mother and father would take my brothers and I and my sister to see them, usually during the summertime. And so one day I was down there as a youth, still in school, and I overheard my Aunt Anna, my mother's sister, and they were talking about Juneteenth. So I probably would have forgotten about it, except my Aunt Anna's husband's name was June. So I think it reinforced a memory.
You heard about them talking about what, how people celebrated it? Or
I really didn't know.
You just...
I was very young, so
Yeah.
I just heard the word. I didn't want to find out any more about it.
So when was the next time that it came into your consciousness?
Well, I'm living in Boston, and I have a family there. I raised a family. I became a community activist, and one day I overheard, again as an adult, people talking about Juneteenth, and I said, well, something in my memory said I have to look into this, and I did, and I found out what it meant, and my marketing and advertising mindset started to work. I said, hey, this not the holiday yet, but this
Okay.
occasion needs a symbol.
So it's true that very few people, even in your community, talked about it or knew about it. Some word you heard when you were a kid, and later years it came to you, and you were involved in a profession, marketing and design work, where you could do something about it.
Yeah, well, I've learned, since the flag was designed with the help of a wonderful graphic artist named Lisa Jean Graff in Boston, that much of the country was not aware of Juneteenth.
Okay.
It was places in the South, Texas, as you mentioned, the state of Virginia, where my mother and my aunt lived, and a few other places were acknowledging Juneteenth, but
Okay.
not the North,
Right.
or the Midwest, or other regions of the country.
Right. So now we've gone this far and we've shown the flag, but we haven't even said what June 19th means. How many people out there really could tell you in one or two sentences what June 19th is? So why don't you just tell us what happened on June 19th, 1865?
Well, after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves in our country, there were areas in the country that did not free the slaves, and Texas was one of them. And so 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, General Gordon Granger was sent to Texas to free the slaves, and that took place in June of 1865. But the slaves, after they were freed, some of them left Texas, but the ones that stayed said, "Look, we have to acknowledge the freedom that we just received 2 years after President Lincoln's emancipation."
Right. So it's not like today where everybody's walking around with a cell phone
There you go.
and knows,
Yeah.
hey, the war is over. They just surrendered to General Grant, and the Union won the war, right?
Right.
They didn't know that basically the war was over, and it was time to get an order.
Well,
Now
some of them didn't know, but some of the slave owners did know.
Oh, the slave owners
but
knew.
they were holding on to
Right.
their living,
Right.
Agriculture.
Right.
So,
So we know that it was January 1st, 1863, when Lincoln gave out the proclamation,
New Year's
which
Day.
freed the slaves in the Confederate States, and the Confederate States that had not been taken over by the Union. It did not free the slaves in, I think it's Maryland, Delaware, and Kentucky, which were border states that did not secede, but they still had slavery there until the
see?
end of the war, and then the 13th Amendment of the Constitution in 1865 in December said all slaves are freed. That was very, very
See,
important.
that's what you just said. Makes me realize you are a great talk show host.
Oh, okay. But well, it's interesting and important history, and we're repeating. We did this show a couple of years ago, but it's always worth repeating. It's very, very important. And so there were people in the South who were enslaved who didn't realize until June 19th.
That's
And
right.
it was a huge announcement for them, and they started celebrating. But no one else in the country really did a lot of that, and the date just kind of didn't catch on to the rest of the country because everyone else was already celebrating the end of the war. So Elijah, when did you're growing up with your dad, and you watch him with his interests and his activities. When did you learn about June 19th, and what did it mean for you?
So I absolutely learned about it through listening to my father and his regular communication with Dr. Myers on the telephone. And so he had a computer back in the mid-90s. He was ahead of the curve on having a computer and the internet, you know, the old dial-up. And he had, in his home office, he was working on these things regularly, and he would keep me informed. And I remember when he was working on creating the flag, you know, he would ask other people's input. What do you think about this? But it wasn't until years later, many conversations, that I really understood some of the history of Juneteenth and the dates. I mean, the date, yes, but you know, with the Emancipation
right.
Proclamation and so
So you went to school in Boston.
I did, yes.
Did they ever talk about June 19th in your history classes?
There might have been like 1 or 2 sentences in my senior history
But it
book.
wasn't anything that was, I mean, everybody learned about the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War, the end of the war, maybe the amendments ending slavery, but June 19th was just not a big subject at that point.
Not at all. And in my particular history class, we kind of brushed over whatever was in there.
Yeah.
I wound up taking history in summer school to pass high school.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I did.
So now that it's been a national, so we do know, we're going to show the slides, that even though most people up north didn't recognize it or talk about it, in Texas and other places in the South, they would regularly have big events on June 19th to celebrate it, picnics and fairs and things like that.
Yes, that's right.
We have some photographs to, you know, to
In
show
Virginia,
that.
they had parades in the 1920s.
Right? Did they? Yeah. So so it was a thing that was happening around the country, but not the whole country was,
Right.
you know, was aware of it. And so, what was it in your background that made you feel that you had to work on this and you had to create what you're wearing? Your T-shirts now, basically, that's the flag, that's the design that you created, right?
Well, Sheila, that's a good question. All your questions are good, but it makes me think of when my parents would take us to the South as young people, and I would see separate water fountains for the colored people and for the white people. And then when we went to a movie, we had to sit in the balcony, separation. So, but my parents were, as I look back on it, protective of their children, and they didn't really want us to absorb too much of what they went through. It's when I think about what they went through, it's just amazing. And so they protected their children, as I believe a lot of parents did. And so as an adult, to answer your question, I wanted to give something back to my parents, my mother and my father, for what they went through, and their relatives and my relatives and everybody's relatives. And so I think that's what prompted me to say, try to do something to help Juneteenth, a day of freedom.
Right. Had you been active at all during the civil rights movement in Boston or other areas?
Well, during the civil rights movement, no, but I listened to a number of people in the New York City area on the radio, like Malcolm X, and of course Martin Luther King Jr. He was just unbelievable leader. Possibly he could have been elected president, but things happened to both of them.
Yeah, both of them were killed.
Yes.
Both of them were killed.
So that's the closest I came to understanding what was going on with civil rights. I did get involved later on with the Vietnam protests.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? We seem to lurch in our history toward periods of terrible things happening, then we do some corrective things, then we have to march again for the next thing. And now here we are today, in 2025. We just got over a weekend
Yeah.
of more marches, more protests to see if we can help make this country better and fix it if we can.
Well, that's. I'm glad you said that, because I believe that the American people, and that can get very complex because of the enormous size of this country, the 50 states, the 320 or 50 million people, different cultures. It just goes on and on and on. But the American people have to rise to this occasion and maybe put their differences aside and try to hold on to this country, because this country is a miracle that is still here. We went through a civil war, went through civil rights. The Revolutionary War has been one crisis after another. And the American people now have been educated. We're supposed to be the leaders of the free world. And I tell people when I go out to speak that we continue our ancestors' journey. So we have to work on behalf of them as well as our young people and ourselves to make this country better. That's why it's still here. God, our Creator, has kept this country together. And people who work against it, you have to call them out and say, you can't do this, because this is not what God wants.
Well, okay, so Elijah, you listen to your dad. So he's of the older generation, and you're of the younger generation. Do you think people in your generation have the same fervor, the same enthusiasm to work to make things better in this country? You think they're engaged enough in the process of being a good citizen to try and help make things better?
I think more and more are, but I do think there was probably a time recently where that was not very much. So I think there's some catching up to do in regards to that.
So are there people of your generation that are as enthusiastic as you are with the June 19th and the issues of American history and all of that?
I think it's increasing. Definitely there's some, but again, I feel there was at least like an era where even myself included maybe didn't even have the enthusiasm that I should. So I would think that that some of my peers were the same.
So let's get to the T-shirts and the flag. We're going to talk about that more specifically, because you had obviously the talent, the design. I know you had a helper from this woman. What's her name?
Lisa Jean Graff.
What was her role in helping you design the flag?
Well, after living in Boston, I consulted with a number of artists about the flag and what it represented. And it was a gradual process. I have to say that watching the show, television show, Nova, really kind of made me pay attention to what that word meant. It's a new beginning, and I thought about a new beginning and the way it was described, a star, and on the flag we have a star that is bursting out but is rising into the universe or to the heavens. That's why we have a curve. It's rising into the universe, and the star represents the Lone Star State. It represents the 50 states, and the red, white, and blue represents the United States, even though the slaves were denied citizenship.
So the Lone Star State, meaning Texas, because that's where it originated.
That's
that
right.
was the Galveston, Texas.
I didn't want to leave them out.
Didn't want to leave it. So that's the smallest star. What's the outer burst? Did you describe what that is? The outer.
That's the Nova.
The Nova. Okay.
A new beginning.
Okay.
A new country.
Right. Because
now you have people who were given their freedom, even though it wasn't a totally a freedom. They weren't enslaved as they once were.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that people, maybe not everybody, but the slaves helped build this country's economy. They didn't get compensation. They didn't get the citizenship. They were, in many cases, abused
Yeah.
in so many different ways. So this country right now has to start paying attention to what's going on with the people who don't want an authoritarian trying to rule a country that has fought to have people free.
Freed not just from slavery,
Huh?
not just from slavery, freed from discrimination against women, against the gay
That's right.
community, against
Immigrants.
immigrants. Absolutely.
Immigrants. This country was built
Right.
foundation of immigrants.
Yeah.
So to make America great, you have to acknowledge a lot of people and a lot of different things that they did. The legal profession, even the homemakers, there's so many of them.
Right.
They helped make America great, and that's what should be emphasized.
Yeah. So you're looking at this holiday integrated into the whole story of America, and you put that in there all the day. And it almost looks like I can be on a plane heading toward that, looking at it. It's very nice
I'm glad
perspective.
you say that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It has a nice perspective, like a movement.
Yeah, that Lisa Jean Graff, since you mentioned, when she called me and we met downtown in Boston, I told her what I thought the flag should look like. I had time to give thoughts to it and so forth. And it didn't take her long. She captured it. And I'll never forget when the former mayor, Thomas Menino of Boston, had the flag raised in front of Boston City Hall, and I worked right next to.
So what year was that? That was way before.
That
it
was
became
back
a
in the
national holiday.
1990s.
Right.
And I remember the flag being up there because it was always important to me how a flag, anything looks.
Right.
And
So from the 90s to 2021, when it was made into a national holiday, there's a lot of work.
Well, I tell the people that from time to time, not all the time, when we meet, that the national holiday for Juneteenth, it was a game changer. You know what that term means?
Yes. How did it change the game?
Well, all the work that has been done to make Juneteenth a holiday, what it represents, the acknowledgement of our history, and then to have President Joe Biden to sign the bill and make it a national holiday, this is healthy.
Yeah. How did you feel on it? Did you watch it on TV? Because it was during COVID. Did you watch it on TV? You weren't in Washington when it happened.
Where was I?
Yeah. Where were you when it happened?
I must have been in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how did you feel when you saw him?
Well,
sign
I'll
that?
be truthful with you, Sheila. I told people, I said, it's like it was hard for me to. I can't think of the words I use, but it took me a while to say, well, this is like. Eventually, I knew it was a game changer,
Right.
but it was overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
All right. And over these last few years, you've gotten a lot of recognition. We have some photographs. I mean, we were here in Norwich with Congressman Courtney. We raised the flag down in front of City Hall, if you remember that.
I remember.
And you went. Just tell us a few of the places where you were. I know you were in Philadelphia. I know you were honored different places. And what was some of the highlights of the different ways that people congratulated you, thanked you, honored you in these last few years?
Well, everybody has different memories. I'm going to go to the most recent one when we were just in Boston to have a flag raising with Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts.
Right.
And we raised the flag in the place where we were originally raising the Juneteenth flag, even before the design was final. And Senator Markey, he was like a director. He had his people there, and it was a wonderful experience at the Thomas Dillaway house. People in Boston, they should visit the Thomas Dillaway house. It's in Roxbury in John Elliott Square, and that was really something that the senator was there. We both raised the flag together. But like you said, I went to Philadelphia. I even went to Galveston, Texas, where Juneteenth was started. And
You must have had a big celebration there.
in Galveston,
Yeah.
it could have been bigger.
Okay.
It was a National Juneteenth Observers Foundation who put it together. And I just, to be honest with you, Sheila, Juneteenth, like a lot of things, is developing. It's growing.
Right.
And it's taking some time for people to grasp it.
Right.
And I just think eventually everybody will look at it as a day of freedom, not just for the people of slaves, the descendants, but ancestors. Our ancestors don't get the credit they deserve who helped create this country.
Right.
All ancestors.
Well, let's hope this Friday, June 19th, people will, even if they go shopping, which so many of these holidays turn out to be shopping, you know that. Shopping,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So let's hope that people will take a few minutes to think about what helped make this country great. People
That's
like
right.
your ancestors who were enslaved and contributed so much. I still remember when Michelle Obama gave a speech in the White House and said, you know, I am standing in these rooms that were built by slaves.
there you are. There you
You
are.
know, and I still remember that. And I don't think Americans think enough about the contributions that were made.
Well, that's very important what you just said, and that's what Juneteenth represents.
right. So tell me, what are some of these celebrations that we're going to have in this area or around the country that you know about?
I'll let Elijah.
Okay, Elijah, tell us what
No.
what are the different things?
So this year at the Connecticut State House, they're going to be having their annual flag raising. It's going to be on the 18th this year.
It's going to be tomorrow instead of Thursday.
Yes, tomorrow
Okay.
instead of Thursday. Sometimes it's on the 19th and sometimes it's on the 18th. And they're going to have a mental health panel. And it makes me think about a scripture about guarding your heart, because your intentions and all of these things come through it. And some say that when that scripture is referring to the heart of your mind. So that's going to be a very important panel that we're going to be attending. Then after that, we're actually going to make our way up to Boston for a flag raising at the Dillaway Thomas House, which takes place every year on the 19th, where my father started raising the flag.
And people should, I suppose, go online and Google June 19th commemorations, celebrations around the country in different places. I'm sure there are many things that are being planned for many different states. But in Connecticut, there's anything else besides the thing at the State House?
Oh, well, I know New Haven will be having something. Sister Iman, she holds an event there in the Green, I believe it's called, New
that's what it
Haven
is,
Green,
yeah.
every year. It's a big event, a lot of fun. They collaborate with the art community there, so there's it's integrated. I know Bridgeport's going to be having something. I heard Stamford actually had something a few days ago.
Is Norwich going to be having anything?
Yes, they are. I saw it. Was at the Norwich Free Academy, and they had something scheduled
Okay.
here in Norwich.
But you're going to be in Boston on Friday? Yeah, you're going to be there. Okay. That's so.
It'll be Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
On Juneteenth, we'll be in Boston.
You'll be in Boston on June.
We had some other invitations, but
Juneteenth is Thursday, that's right. Wednesday's the 18th, right?
these days are just.
Yeah. All right, so again, if people are interested, go on Google and look for Juneteenth commemorations in your community or close by or Connecticut's a small state. You can go to New Haven, you can go to Hartford pretty easily. Okay. All right. So you now, Elijah, have this title. Tell us about the organization that you work on with your dad.
Oh, yes, thank you. So my father, he recently co-founded with my cousin Scott and I, an intellectual property company. Because of some of his great skills, which helped him design the flag, as well as some other projects that he's worked on in the past, he's protected them through this LLC, and it's really helped us navigate our efforts. And so I'm a data developer. It's kind of what some of my background is in. I'm, as far as like terminology, when I learn terminology, it kind of helps me move forward. So I've kind of just been putting it together the best I can as far as helping my dad with his scheduling and reaching out to
an umbrella organization for you to schedule your things, to make some merchandise that you have. Obviously, these
Right. T-shirts
for sale. Can you go online, Elijah? What can you do?
So this T-shirt is with the premier partner that my dad has partnered with called Actively Black, and they have a website, and these are for sale on the website.
Okay, but your organization is a nonprofit organization.
The Benjamin Haith Intellectual Property is a LLC.
LLC, okay.
I do have a nonprofit that I've been considering for some time, but that may be somewhere down the line.
Okay, all right. So you think that you're in the groove to help publicize June 19th whenever you can, in any way you can.
Well, Sheila, I've been blessed to have a family, especially my son Elijah and his cousin Scott and my wife Dorothy. They've kind of pulled things together and brought us to this point. I couldn't have done it without them. They've been enormous.
That's great. And I know, but I see you online. I get your emails all the time. Every day something is eating at you that you have to express it to, right? Is that true? You have to express it to get. This is what I have to say today.
You got me.
Everybody, listen to me. This is an important issue, whether it's the city of Norwich, the senior center, the library.
Seems like sometimes I'm all over the place.
You want more music in people's lives, right? Lord. That's very important.
I'm surprised myself.
So that's a good question. Is there any music, singing, songs specifically associated with June 19th?
Well,
if not, there should be, right? You should.
Well, I know there are people out there who would have different projects.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's been recognized as, being like the flag is known as.
Well, that's your next project. Find a musician to create a song for June 19th.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay, well, you can write that down. Right? I think that would be fantastic. So there'd be some music associated specifically with that holiday. I mean, right now we can sing lots of different songs. Oh, You Shall Overcome, and a whole bunch of stuff, but that's not specific to June 19th. That would be great.
I'll get the word out.
Yeah, and then you can sing it.
Along with the Golden Nuggets.
Okay. All right, well, let's turn to our slideshow studio. So let's just go slowly through this and just give. So again, there's the flag, Juneteenth, the end of slavery in America, June 19th, 1865, when what was his name, Granger? Officer
Gordon Granger.
Gordon Granger.
He was a general.
Went down to Galveston and brought an order saying, hey, these slaves are freed now. All right, next slide. And there's a copy. We can't read it, but that's what it kind of looked like. The January 1st Emancipation Proclamation, where Lincoln freed the slaves in the Confederate territories, but not in the border states of Maryland, Kentucky, and Delaware that still had slaves until the war was over. But that was very important because the Emancipation Proclamation also helped get blacks in the North to join the Union forces, which is a very important thing also. Okay. Have anything else to say on that?
No, you're doing
Got
a
it?
good job. You
Okay,
sound like a
next.
historian.
Okay, area covered. Again, as you see, the area covered was not the border states or the Union states, but it was mostly the Southern Confederate states that the Emancipation Proclamation related to. Okay, next. And here again is this particular order. And this was announced in Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865, a military order. When was the first time you heard that name, Granger?
It was associated with Juneteenth and what happened in Galveston, and you know the name stuck because the letter G
Right.
and a general, actually 3 G's, I guess there. So it's there.
That name is, you remember it, and apparently think of the slaves in Galveston, Texas.
It's the other G, Galveston.
Galveston, right? General order. That's a G.
Yeah, you can't get away from it.
How do you, can you imagine how your parents would think these people felt when they learned this news?
Well, Sheila, your question, I don't know if I'll answer it clearly, but maybe it'll come close. I'll never forget the expression on my mother's face in Stanford when I showed her the Juneteenth flag. It was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was approval, a smile of approval. She didn't have to say anything.
Now, were your parents raised in the South or in the North?
In the South.
So they knew. Did they ever? How much did they talk to you about segregation in the South?
They didn't.
They didn't.
Much. I don't. Not much at all.
You think they just didn't want you to know the pain
Yeah.
of
The
it?
way I look back on it, it was. They decided not to.
And you think that was pretty common for most families?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. And when did you move north?
I've always been. I was born in Norwalk, Connecticut,
you was.
raised in Stanford.
So your parents were
They're the ones that came from the South.
they came. Yeah.
Like a lot of people who were in the South, you know about the migration.
Sure. The big, yeah.
You know, Midwest, Northeast.
Well, during Jim Crow, they came up to
That's
the
right.
Midwest Chicago area a lot, yes, of course. We know that the Emancipation Proclamation, the amendments to the Constitution, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, didn't solve the problem, did it?
No.
No, because the South just refused to obey it.
No, they wanted to create their own country.
Right, and then we had Jim Crow, and as you said, there was that big migration. Many blacks left, and of course, when I was growing up, and when you were growing up, blacks was not the term. The term that we used was either coloreds or Negroes.
That's right, and that was on our birth certificates.
Negro.
Yeah.
Okay. So black became a term more in the 19th, after Malcolm X and after the,
That's right.
the more energized young black people who said we need more. We need more than just political freedom. We need social freedom. We need economic freedom, right? And Martin Luther King, toward the end of his life, did a lot more for economic. After all, why was he in, was it Memphis where he was killed?
Yes.
Because he was there, it was a garbage strike. He was
That's
there
right.
to help the union.
That's right, he was.
Yeah.
That's what he went there for.
That was the next phase of the movement. Okay, we get our political freedom, we can vote, but we don't have economic freedom, we don't have social freedom. So,
You know, you mentioned something that's important, even though we're addressing things that happen to people of color. A lot of things were not going well for women in this country, and they have to fight their way, and they continue to look for equality. And so this country is going to have to recognize it's more than your race. It's about humanity. I'll never forget Whoopi Goldberg talking about.
Well, the women's suffrage movement was very angry after the Civil War when black enslaved became free, it could vote, but the women still couldn't.
Yeah, see that is.
That was part of
Yeah.
more fighting until 1920.
Unfortunately, a difficult learning process.
Yeah. Well, we seem to keep getting better. We were. Maybe now we're afraid we're going backwards. But I've always felt that America's promise to being great was we have our problems, we fight, we struggle, we overcome, we pass a law. But now it seems like we're not going right up like we always do. We seem to be maybe going backwards. We don't want that.
Yeah, well, the way you described it, it's accurate. We're at another point where we're being challenged. It's a challenge, and a lot of people are stepping up and say, hey, look, we're here. We're not going to let you just take over our country.
Right. Okay. All right, let's go on to the other slides. Okay, here he is.
There he
is.
is.
Mr. G. Major General Gordon Granger issued the order informing Texas residents that slavery had ended. Next. And then again, here's 1900. So all from 1865 through 1900, there was stuff happening in Texas celebrating that Juneteenth. It was important to people down there. Mm-hmm. Next. Okay, and again, another festival, June 19th in Texas, probably, yeah. Here we go in 1905, Richmond, Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah, there we again, that's a big celebration. Next. And then statue of Al Edwards, Texas State Representative. He sponsored a law to make Juneteenth a state holiday, and Texas was the first state to establish it as a holiday. Every year there's an Al Edwards prayer breakfast and Juneteenth celebration. So there you go. Texas has some good stuff. We can here, Seattle, 1980. So it's happening. It's not well known everywhere, but it's happening. 1980, first annual. And here we are, 2019. I don't know where this is, but they're having a festival just a few years ago. Milwaukee, it's a nice big festival in 2019. Oh, here it is, President Biden signing the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law. Oh, he signed it on June 17, 20. I thought he signed it on
just a few days.
2019. I thought it was 2021. Okay, 20.
It is 2021.
It was 2021? I think it was.
Oh, we're confusing it with
all
something.
Right, here's all about your flag, right?
Yeah.
And there you go. The star represents Texas, but also the freedom of African Americans in all 50 states. The colors, red, white, and blue, represent the American flag, a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are Americans. The burst around the star is inspired by a nova. Astronomers use to mean a new star. This represents a new beginning for African Americans, and the arc across the width of the flag represents a new horizon, the opportunities and promises that lay ahead for Black Americans. That's a great description. You described it perfectly too. Yep. Here it is, your flag.
There it is.
Great. Next. And here you are. Is that Philadelphia?
That's Philadelphia.
Yep, you were there a few years ago. That was after it became a national holiday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And next, there you are signing the flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Here you are.
They really took in Juneteenth.
Next. Oh, that is, I think that's honoring you, right?
Yes.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'll be truthful. I need to look at it again.
Oh, okay. I think this is what.
They gave me several things. One was an award, Freedom Award.
You got the Freedom Award. Okay. All right. Now this was Friday, June 17th. I was there, 2022. So I think the year was 2021. I'm going to have to double check that. So that was at the courtyard on Broadway, right at Town Hall, and you were there with your flag, and there were some lovely presentations.
You were there.
I was there. Yep, it was great. Next, and there you are with Congressman Courtney, and behind some nice artwork from some of the art groups in Norwich. And that's one of the art things they did, which was really nice. And there you are speaking. And here you are. You're raising the flag right there in Norwich, and
you got some good photos.
What?
You took some good photos.
Yeah, I took those photos, I think. Yep. Oh, and there the two of you are, and you're holding, I guess, an honorary commemorating.
I think it was from the city.
Some certificate from the city. Congratulating you. Now, tell us about this. You went to Fenway Park.
Oh my goodness!
What happened there?
Well, another experience that, took me some time to grasp, because I grew up as a baseball fan, and I knew, it was when they asked people to throw the first pitch out, that was
a huge honor to do that.
So that's what happened. I was asked to do that at the Red Sox ballpark, Fenway Park, and that's part of Juneteenth. That's the reason I was there.
Fantastic. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Look, there you are. How was your pitch? Was it okay?
Oh, you had to ask them. It was all right, but it was in the dirt.
Did you practice before?
Oh, yeah, I practiced.
Elijah, did you help him practice?
Oh, yes, yeah.
All right. And then, okay, this is great because Ralph Ellison wrote a book, a novel. Did you finally read it? I sent it to you, called Juneteenth. And he wrote something that's a great quote. The Hebrew children have their Passover so that they can keep their history alive in their memories. So let us take one more page from their book, and on this great day of deliverance, on this day of emancipation, let us tell ourselves our story. And then the next one, I think is the last slide, the same thing. So I think leave it on the screen for a while because I think it's a great quote and something so fitting with everything that you stand for, Ben, everything that you talk about.
Yes. What's going on in the Middle East, it's directly connected to humanity.
Yeah. So let's kind of summarize. Ben, let's talk Elijah first. What are you hoping will happen this year with all the festivities? How much more publicity will there be, and what can you do with your family? Children, do they know about it? Are they participating?
They are participating. It's funny because my son Daniel, Juneteenth was one of his first words after mom and dad.
Really?
Yeah, so he doesn't talk very much, but he surprises us with what he knows. My daughter, she understands it very well. I'm hoping that it continues to grow, and that what I'm really liking calling it the season of celebrating freedom in this country, with Juneteenth and July 4th, of the cycle of freedom, and that it just becomes a season where people, we celebrate freedom every day, but a special season, kind of like towards the end of the year where there's holidays, a holiday season. I'm hoping that is something that kind of
Okay, and how proud are you of your dad?
I'm very proud of my dad. Very proud of him. It really grows on me more and more. Yeah. And I respect him very much for what he's done.
Okay.
Well, I attribute what I've accomplished to our ancestry. I believe that what they did to help make this country what it is what has given me the opportunity to continue their journey.
Toward greater freedom,
Yes.
economic,
Yeah, for
social, political.
Our children and grandchildren and their children. Our Creator wants this country to show the world, and the world has been listening and watching, and they're wondering what's going on now. But they know that this country helps other countries, and the world is gradually becoming a community, which I think is good.
And are you feeling momentum over these last few years since it was made a national holiday? Are you feeling a momentum that it's getting more recognition,
Yes.
more better and better each
Yes,
year?
it-
Okay, before we go, let's just hold it up one more time. So we're going to let people know which way does it go. This way,
You
like so. Is that it?
see, no, the blue, flip it like
this-
that.
Ah, the blue goes on top. Okay, so everyone out there, in a couple of days, on Thursday, we'll have June 19th. Learn about your history, celebrate it, teach your children, go to an event, have fun, have food, have music. And next time we have Ben on the program, he's going to inaugurate the music for June 19th.
I made a note of it. I got to
That's
do
an
it.
assignment for next year. So Elijah and Ben, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, June 19th, 2025. Great. Take care. Thank you. See you all next time on Talk Back. Bye.